Howdy, welcome back. We're here again. I mentioned last week a tease towards a topic that I had on my mind, and we're going for it today. And, you know, the topic, simple enough, is that of studying. I think it's important. If you've gone to school, which is the majority of people, you've had to study. If you've gone to college, you've had to study more. And if you've done graduate school, you've had to study more. And then, of course, depending on what route you went, your study looks different and your field experience look different. But I have been, funny enough, doing a study on discipline, a personal study. And it has been really good. It's been going for about, well, I guess I technically started it a year ago, just passively, but then I really got back into it about maybe 6 weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, I think. And for me, and it's specifically been on spiritual discipline. I've actually done a separate study on discipline prior to that, but this is spiritual discipline. So from a religious perspective, it's, what disciplines in the spiritual world are found important from a Christian worldview. And I study multiple topics. There's kind of three topics I go back and forth on genre-wise. It's spirituality, specifically Christian faith, business, and therapy/psychology. And I'll throw in stuff I'm interested in. I'll look up history or I'll read philosophy and things like that. And a lot of those actually overlap with these topics, depending on what you're studying at the time. But I just find studying to be so, so important. And one of the things that this recent study has taught me is that, there is a difference between knowledge and study. A lot of people, what is it? William Penn has a really good maxim where he essentially talks about someone who's knowledgeable but not wise, just acquires that knowledge for someone else to use. And really what he means by that, and I didn't quote it right, he kind of sums it all up well in his quote. But what he's saying is, if you just know things, you're just useful to other people, not yourself. Because if you don't know how to use what you learn and you don't understand it in context or an application, then you're more or less just an internet search for someone who wants to know information. Whereas true understanding from actual study and not just learning and knowledge is contextual. So if you read a book on whatever topic, you learn from it, but it's the studying part that is different. That's taking notes. It's rereading. That's asking, what is the author saying? Is there anything I'm missing? What's the context this is written in? Is this an old text? And if so, what was going on the time it was written? In the author's life, in the country of origin, in the world at the time? What other pieces of work are being referenced inside of this piece of work, if any? What predictions is it making? Have they happened? There's a lot of things involved in just that private study that make a difference, and then taking it outside of you to reflect on, all right, let me think on this more. Let me spend time with this mentally in my day. Can I apply it to my day? I'm having conversations with people about what I'm studying, and especially when you can talk to people who are also studying the same thing. But my encouragement for anyone listening is to really never stop being a studier and a learner, to pay attention to what you feel like you need to know or what you feel like you're being called to understand better, and then study it and understand it. And another principle that's important is, if you have a bunch of things you're interested in learning about, try to stick to one at a time, or at least keep them segmented enough, and try to keep it topical. So I have probably a couple dozen books that I want to read before I die and just get to, and then I have probably a couple hundred that I'm interested in, and that list will only grow, and the first list will grow too, but the first list is accomplishable, the second list isn't. But for instance, my spiritual discipline study right now involved me reading 4 new books, and then I'm going to go back and reread one book, and then potentially another new one. And then I'm doing like a philosophical read on the side related to the topic. It's not really spiritual, but it's helping with further refining understanding of discipline. And what this does is you keep a lot of emphasis on the topic that you're learning. I think that's helpful. You're getting multiple sources on the same thing. And to me, I feel like I've learned quite a lot when I get to the point where I'm just not dog-earing and underlining things in my book because I just know it already. There's less to be taught because I've been learning so much. So revelations aren't as new, and information I'm hearing for a second time, or this book and this book used the same example or the same piece of research to reference, and I've heard it already because I'm getting info from everywhere. So the more that books in a category start to become unhelpful, the more usually you can guarantee that you are doing a good job studying and learning. And even when things are getting repetitive, you're reinforcing that, oh, this is an important thing that gets brought up a lot, either because it's important or because for some reason it's being regurgitated. And that's another question that you have to look into with your study. So yeah, there's just a lot of benefit that can come from focusing on one topic for a period of time. And depending on how, a month or two is fine, but I would say it's more to do, you want to make sure you overload the volume that you're doing. So if you're reading, aim for at least 1,000 pages on a topic. If you are listening, probably aim for 100 to 200 hours of lecture or audiobooks. Aim for a couple dozen hours of conversation with people. And then, and I don't know, probably another couple dozen pages of notes of your own that you're taking. And then your study needs to be long enough for application to transpire. So if you're doing a study on discipline, well, you need to set aside a period of time that you can actually experiment with discipline and apply what you're learning. And you can't do that usually in a day. There's some stuff you can do in a day, but usually you can't. There are definitely things, or sometimes the discipline is doing something once and it's hard, but a lot of it's ongoing stuff. So when you're studying discipline, you have to practice ongoing. And I would recommend you apply the first thing you learn, like right out the gate, just start applying after your first reading. And go from there. And then you add and take away and adjust and learn as you go. And that's the experiential knowledge that you get. That's applied both from your past experience with what you understand about the world and how that's overlapping and applying and being considered with this new information, but also applying in the moment as you continue forward to then change your life experiences by adding new things to them and trying things out and seeing, what does this actually look like for me to engage with? So keep being a student, keep studying. It's really important. And I think it's easier when you focus on one topic because you're just getting it recycled in your mind so much. I think it's harder if you just read like one book on a topic every couple months or every couple years, and you're like, oh, I think I kind of remember that from this thing. Most things in life, you benefit more by just doing a ton of engagement with it all at once. High volume in a short period of time is typically a huge route to success at anything you're working on. So long game is still important, but overloading, or maybe a better way to say is front ending your task, is really helpful. Like just adding a lot to start. Same way with like investments. The earlier you get started, and if you can put a lot in, it's just going to accrue more over time. So whatever you're wanting to learn and do, just do a ton of it all at once so you can get the ball rolling. And then momentum is easier. Same with fitness. Like just go all in. Diet, just go all in. It's often harder, but then you're rolling with it. And then when you start to back off a little bit to focus on the next thing, the backing off you do is bringing it back to just manageable baseline, which is still probably more than the average person is doing at that thing. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward for a lot of things, but studying, for sure, do it. So if you are a studier, I'm super curious to hear your habits. Let me know in the comments. If you don't study, I'd be curious why not. And I'm also curious just what people are fascinated with and what's the next thing you're wanting to learn. So that's that. Happy Monday, and see y'all next week.